ditch slopes, reduces the ditch size, and reduces the impacts to that property. Through these design refinements, we were able to reduce right-of-way impacts on 66 of the 94 non-farmland parcels. That's 70% of those non-farmland parcels. For 18 parcels, we were able to completely eliminate the need for acquiring permanent right-of-way, and we reduced those needs to temporary easements for grading and driveway adjustments. Now, these include 13 parcels in the town of Alden and 5 in other locations along Alden Road. And all the proposed right-of-way needed from non-farmland parcels was reduced by 13 acres. So that's 38% of the proposed right-of-way that was needed from non-farmland parcels. So this summarizes our continued engineering to reduce right-of-way impacts to the non-farm properties. So Wally is now going to talk about moving forward from here.
So at this point, we're obviously here today to seek your concurrence to go out and have another public hearing so we can present all of this information to the public. Again, get their feedback, and after we take into account that feedback, we should be able to complete our phase 1 study. We still have a report out there that we got to button up and get approved by IDOT and the Federal Highway Administration. And then really the next challenge or next final step is the inclusion of this project in our next highway or future highway improvement programs. As we did it last year, there is no funding identified for any future phases of Alden Road. So as we work to develop that program, this is going to have to be incorporated in or included in weighing against all the other projects that we have versus our funding availability. So those are kind of the next steps that are on the horizon for Alden Road. So that's all we have. We're happy to answer questions.
My question is, when we go back to public hearing, it's great that we were able to reduce a lot of this right away. I think that's going to be very heavy. I think it's great that you've shown in those groups the history of the pavement and what it's made out of and why we feel that it needs to be replaced. However, they don't visually see that, and it's very difficult to get that point across. And when we're going through this, that's what I heard is they don't see it. So what was the feedback from that during your stakeholder groups, and how do you plan to approach that in another public hearing?
As far as
they really don't feel that the road needs to be repaired.
There's a certain element that I don't think we're ever going to get over. I think a lot of the stakeholder meetings provided us with insight into some of the questions, and that's why we developed a lot of this information, and we'll use that at the public hearing to help answer those questions a little bit better than we did the last time around, as far as the need and the notion that you don't need to do anything, or that all the accidents were DUIs or something like that. So don't worry about it. It's fine as it is. So, but yeah, there's always going to be that element of doubt as far as what actually needs to be done.
Well, I mean, they look at the road and they don't feel it needs to be done. Mm-hmm. Also, they say it's a road in nowhere. Was that brought up during these public hearings, and how do we approach that?
The stakeholders, I think, I don't know that they're beyond that. I think the focus was just that we don't need to do anything. I think everybody understands that we're not adding lanes. I know during the public involvement process that was still a thing, and I think through the stakeholder group we were able to communicate we're not adding lanes. This isn't a capacity project, and I think that is filtered back. I really haven't heard any more about the capacity issues over the year as we did right after the meeting.
Okay. The stakeholders, they've been presented with the reduction in parcels?
Yeah, we've walked them through these techniques and other techniques and the reductions that we're able to achieve.
And they're in favor of it? Positive about it?
Well, not to belabor a point that I guess is what my question is too. How effective a tool has this been? Because when you're hearing from stakeholders, I'd like to think that we at least made some inroads there. Was there any concurrence on the part of the stakeholders that this is, you're presenting me with information there, and suddenly it's like a light bulb goes on, okay, I can see where you're coming from, and this is what I will be taking back to the people that I'm there representing. Was there any?
There's definitely been an appreciation of the level of effort that we've gone through to explain why we're doing and to reduce the impacts. We have not shared parcel by parcel, property by property, hey, you live here, this is what it used to look like, this is what it's going to look like. We've been working with the stakeholder group on the big picture. We've got 150 parcels, so that's what we're going to use the public hearing for, is to communicate the details of what we're doing to everybody. You know, we've been focused right now on the overall concepts and different ideas and trying to bring this all back down from where it started.
Alden, I view this demonstration as something that you may have to continue to do in your next projects, et cetera, et cetera. This is the first time I think this board has heard that, what she had mentioned, and such. So it really took place after all of the discussions and problems we had into.
Well, after the design. This took place after the original, what we had put out there. So we're going to see how this process, reacting to having put the design out, compares to Fleming Road, where we've gone through this citizens advisory group getting input before.
Maybe the next road you're going to tackle with maybe a village, or et cetera.
Remember, with this and what we're going through here, this is stuff we would have done anyways in phase 2. All that's been done is moved up into the phase 1 aspect of the project. This is something that still would have been done no matter what, and is done on every project.
Be addressing concerns.
Right.
Specific
Right.
concerns, but
Right.
not necessarily the citizens advisory group.
Right.
That has not been done. I had a question for you, Diane. When you made the presentation, you talked about the general public that comes to these. This is designed to be a working meeting, and the general public is coming. How do we accommodate that? Because when it's a working group, you know, it is a public meeting and that the public's invited to it. How did you address the people that came that were not part of this stakeholder group? How did they get questions answered, or was that something we were able to accommodate?
Well, it was similar to this in that there was an area for members of the public to attend, and many of them communicated through their representatives. There were points at which they just, at the end of the meeting, asked several questions on their own, but for the most part, they communicated through their representatives.
Okay. That's good. Now, Ms. Hanson?
I think the other concern from some of the Alden residents, I hope I don't mischaracterize, is that the footprint of the road needed to be remained the same as far as easement areas and everything, and so that the area would be untampered, you know, as far as acquisition of land and everything. So this that we were looking at today with the orange line and the green dots, is that taking consideration of that modification, taking in consideration of their concerns about the footprint of that road remaining intact?
We needed to balance the need to keep everything within the existing footprint with the needs of the project when it comes to drainage and user safety.
Right.
So we were able to incorporate that in as best we could. We were not able to stay within the exact footprint. That was never something that we committed to do, and we looked to reduce that as much as possible, but not to stay within the existing footprint, especially with the shoulders. It's just simply not possible.
Okay.
With adding the piping to reduce